Hello everyone and welcome to the 100 subscriber special. Thank you guys so much for 100 subscribers. I hit it on the 19th. I don't know, but this is coming out on the 22nd, so I'm sorry it's a little bit late. I was just, I was sick. Um so that's why it's coming out a little bit later. But inside of this video for the 100 subscriber special, I'm going to show you all of my, or at least most of my, scrapped ideas for videos that I've had. This will include the first part will be scrapped ideas for my Wixo series, What If Civilization Started Over. So I'll show you all the scrapped ideas that I have in here. This ranges all the way from episode 1 to about now, I think. And then I will show you scrapped video ideas. Quick disclaimer, just because they're scrapped doesn't mean they can't happen. For a lot of the Wixo, scrapped ideas, they most likely are not going to be able to happen. Just because, it's a moving series. But for the video ideas, I'll probably be able to have, that happen. By the way, spoiler alert for episode 17. It's, my bad, guys. Yeah, this is the world as of, episode 17. I did end up removing the attack that Red had on Orange for the war. I mean, for the thumbnail. But anyway, so we're going to I'm going to show you guys all of this stuff that I have to show you. Okay, so here's the first map that I'm here to show you guys. So originally I had and so we know that we started out on the Omani coast. So this is my first scrapped idea. So the original start of Wexo was going to be inside of the Italian peninsula. San Marino's right there. It's weird. The original start of Wixo was going to be in the Italian peninsula, but then I changed it to the Omani coast because I wanted a bit more of a central start, central for Afro-Eurasia, I mean. So that way we were kind of in the center of Asia, Europe, and Africa. Obviously, Africa isn't too important, but I still just wanted a bit of a central start for these three starting continents. Also, if I were to have started in Europe, we most likely would have been to the Americas a bit sooner, which is something I didn't want because I wanted to take my time on this series. But that is the first scrapped idea, starting in the Italian peninsula. For my speed run, I ended up doing that in the Italian peninsula just because I wanted to. So yeah. Anyway, back to this map. For a lot of these, I won't be able to visually show it, but I can still get to show it. If you remember in episode 4, 3, I think it was 3, 4, and 5 maybe, there were a lot of bandit rebellions specifically inside of India, blue, green, and maybe red, I don't remember. But the original idea for this was these weren't actually bandit rebellions, and it was red that was pulling the strings, pulling off these rebellions. Because there was like this new leader, and they didn't like the blue country, the Indians, or the green country. I don't know what I should call this country because it's been everywhere. It was here, like in this area. Oh God, that snap! It was originally right over here in this area, but then it got moved like to up here kind of, and now it's all the way over here. So they're a pretty moving country. But anyway, originally Red was pulling the strings for the re rebellions everywhere, but I decided to scrap that because I don't really think it would have been too exciting if it was Red pulling the strings. I wanted them to be natural rebellions, and instead I changed it to Green pulling the strings of Red's rebellion. Yeah, that's right. So Green and Red actually, let me give you a bit of a backstory here. Red and Green, when they were like like over here, when Green had like the Mesopotamian lands. I mean, obviously Mesopotamia goes out like this. Wait, hold on, I'm on the wrong layer. Obviously, the Mesopotamia lands go out kind of like this or whatever. Yeah. So originally, I thought it kind of was like this, because I'm low key, I'm like slow. I wasn't so good at mapping back then. But I had red and pink, jumping green, moving them to be kind of in this of an area. Um, Something like that. They had like the Persian coast, and then I had them expand after that, and they kind of became pretty dang big, and they moved to be something like this or so. Then they got jumped by both green and red, and they ended up moving up to about here in, I think, episode 10 or so. Then they united with, then they had like this military alliance with this Limish country that was right here, maybe right here or something. Then they unionized after they got jumped again by red when they tried to take over, when they asked for some land. They got moved up to about here, and then they united together with the Lime team, forming this, and there was this country right here, which they ended up taking over, turning them into this. So that's a bit of what that is. But green is a very strong country. I know they're in a pretty weak spot. All the countries around them are weak except for cyan, and of course red. Oh my god. But they are a pretty dang strong country. Same thing with Russia. I don't think I emphasize enough that Russia is like a really strong country. They're in the top four. In fact, Rome has been kicked out of the top four. They're now or wait no. Well, they're at four. They're out of the top three. They've become weaker because other countries have taken over. Um, so the top countries in the world right now are red: India, China, Korea, Russia, and Rome. Following that, and the mid powers are France, Spain, African Union, blue, Vietnam, like all that stuff, green too. Also the Siberian Union, they are pretty strong. I don't think I've emphasized that either. Anyway, sorry, I don't know, I'm getting off track. Cyan, if you guys remember Cyan over here. Yeah, so, in just a pretty recent episode, Rome took over Cyan. Yeah, that was not the original plan. Originally, I had Rome, uniting with Cyan peacefully. However, I did not want, Cyan to, geez, oh my god. Rome was kind of becoming the bad guy, or, I mean, right now I'm trying to make, each, like, good guy country. Originally, red, India and Rome, they've done nothing wrong, they're really chill. Yeah, right now I'm trying to make them all bad guys. So right now, red is hated by a lot of countries around the world because of their, they're like absorbing all the power. India, they haven't really done anything wrong yet. Rome, they took over their friend Cyan, their quote unquote friend. Um, so that is kind of why I had them not unionize, but instead I had them take over Cyan. Don't worry, Cyan will most likely come back one day if Rome were to lose a war. Okay, so also the next thing I want to talk about is major alliances. So red, Rome, India, and blue, they had and Cyan, they had a military and an economic alliance together. That fell apart once they started, drifting off from each other. They started hating each other a little bit more. They started like not liking each other, and that is kind of why that fell apart. And now blue hates red. India just doesn't like red. They don't hate red, but they don't like red. Rome doesn't like red. They hate red. In fact, same with orange here. Orange hates red. Orange is kind of the new cyan, except they're actually liked by Rome. Um, so yeah, that's kind of why that thing fell apart. Cyan, or blue, they have a dictatorship. Speaking of dictatorship, episode 12 was the spread of dictatorship. We had this Tibet formed because there was like an illegitimacy crisis over here with whatever it's called, Vietnam. I mean, I have an ideology map. So gray is dictatorship. I know that's kind of authoritarian. However, that's not really what I'm saying here. Authoritarian. This is outdated, by the way, too. Really outdated. But authoritarian is in this universe it's separate from dictatorship, because dictatorship is there's just a person in charge and he does whatever he wants. That's kind of what that is. Authoritarian is there is a person in charge, he acts like a dictator. However, there's also other stuff. It's close to it's a mix of fascism and dictatorship, in my opinion. We do have fascism over here. I don't know if that's too realistic just yet. So yeah, we also had fascism right here, it looks like. I'm going to have to update this just before World War One, because that's going to be a big player in World War One. But anyway, originally episode 12 was supposed to be the spread of democracy, so we would have seen democracy spread around the world. But then I decided, hey, since this is the medieval era, it's going to be a little bit more realistic and a little bit more dark and a little bit more fun if we have dictatorship spread instead. So I had dictatorship spread into India. There was the Vietnam illegitimacy crisis, forming Tibet, a dictatorship. Then a lot of these Mongolian countries became a dictatorship. By the way, there is the Mongolian country, the original Mongolian country. They got taken over by Korea. They are still here. They're just a state of Korea. So if Korea were to ever fall apart or something like that, or release stuff, Mongolia would most likely come back. Although Mongolia isn't really even in the Mongol region. This is more Mongolian, like in modern day Mongolian, than this is. So yeah. But originally, I also had in India. I think they formed in episode 3 or so. Yeah. Originally, this was not the Indian Peninsula was supposed to be very, very divided. It was going to be divided amongst a bunch of different miniature countries. I ended up changing this to Britain. Britain had a bunch of miniature countries, and they all were always at war. They couldn't unify. Still aren't unified. However, because Scotland and Ireland are here, there isn't really able to be much done. Scotland is technically a colonizer because they have Iceland. However, they're probably not going to be too strong to hold on to that for much longer. Ireland, definitely a colonizer. I mean, look at this. They have a colony right here, colony right here, colony right here, colony right here. They just fought in the Second Colonial War, which only lasted 9 months, but they ended up gaining land. They ended up, and then nothing happened over here because it was a bit of frozen. But they ended up gaining land down here too. And by the way, here, wait, look at the province map, please. This is the province map of North America. Let me know if you guys liked it. When they took over this, I ended up combining a few provinces with this massive one. This is a lot of unorganized territory. So right now, this year, that's unorganized. This is unorganized. A lot of it is just unorganized slash not taken apart yet. Like this is not taken apart. That's kind of what happens with colonizing. This is unorganized. This is unorganized. Everything practically is unorganized. So if if the colonizers were to actually, lock in, do something about this, organize this territory, it would no longer be unorganized. But it's pretty cool. I really like how you're able to see state outlines like over here with the Mississippi. You could see Wisconsin. You could see Illinois. You could see the southern border of Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. You can kind of see the northern border of West Virginia right here. And you can also see the Vermont and New Hampshire border. It's just pretty cool. I think this is, I think it, is this, Maine right here? Yeah, that's Maine's northern border, I think. I'm not entirely sure. No, Maine is over here, right? I don't know. But that's kind of just the border thing happening over here. So yeah. And the next thing is how Norway, wait. Yeah, originally Spain was supposed to go colonize first. I had Spain colonizing. The reason I didn't and I scrapped that idea is because number one, real world parallels. Portugal colonized there was the original people to find America, and I didn't really like how that was how Spain is just like right in that area. Portugal, I just didn't like that. Also, Norway, they were already heading out west. They found Iceland. They found the eastern, like, Greenland coast. Then they found the western Greenland coast. And then at that point, I had them take over this. And originally, the colonial warfare didn't go out how I originally had planned it to go out. Originally, colonial warfare would have happened like this. So Norway, we know that they weren't able to keep their secret. It ended up getting out there that, there's stuff out here. Whoa, what the? So they were originally going to quickly send a bunch of colonizers and expanders to go and expand across all of North America, or at least a lot of North America, and that is how the colonial warfare would have went down. It's the fighting Norway to get pieces, to get your own pieces of North America, but I ended up scrapping that because I just didn't like that idea. It wasn't fun. So that's why I had them find this up here through Greenland. They never ended up taking anything in Greenland because it was just too cold. But they ended up taking over this, and they got here. And then the leader told his wife, who told her friends at her sewing club kind of thing, who then they told their husbands, and that ended up spreading all throughout Norway, which then spread all the way throughout Europe, and that's why also the war between Spain and the Octagon Alliance had just happened. So that way Catalonia would take their entire eastern coast. Originally, I had Spain winning this war, and Catalonia would have disappeared, and it would have been taken over by Spain. But then I ended up scrapping it once I needed Spain to expand out westward, so that way they can they needed a motive to go out west. And that motive was losing their eastern and southern coast. I mean, they didn't lose their southern coast until they had been in America. But anyway, the eastern coast is why they had a motive to go west. So yeah. But now we're going to move on to scrapped video ideas. I'm fixing these up because these should be claimed by them. There we go. So now we're going to move on to scrapped video ideas. So now we're going to show scrapped video ideas, and I'm going to actually kind of play some of these out for you, because if I were to have done them. So the first scrapped video idea was, what if the USA attacked Venezuela? So this was like it's a starting conflict that was happening as of late December. and there was just politics about it, and I decided why not record a video about USA attacking Venezuela, see what would happen. I was planning on recording it, but then I heard the news that the USA invaded Venezuela, took their president. So I decided not to record it because, well, we already know what happened. So I'm going to show you guys a quick. Whoa! I'm gonna show you guys a quick little idea of what might have happened if I were to have recorded this. So here we are. USA is going to move into Venezuela, and so here's what I did. Basically, USA, they were going to use their I guess I should probably color in Puerto Rico because that's going to be a big factor. So I had them landing inside of Venezuela. Whoa! So they landed inside of Venezuela. Let me check where Venezuela's capital is. I'm kind of slow. I'm opening up my Google Maps and I'm finding where they are. Oh, okay. It seems that I've accidentally already had them invade Venezuela. So they're going to make I had them make multiple bombing runs, which they did do in real life. So they made multiple bombings, so. I'm pretty sure they did it in real. I'm not entirely sure. But then they landed their special forces over here, and they framed it as saving Venezuela from their dictator. What was it? I'm kind of slow because I can't really remember it. This was a long time ago that this happened. I think I said that it was the dictator that USA said they were going to get. But then I had them spreading out, gathering at major cities. So first they went to Puerto La Cruz, which is right about here, I think. They got that, and then they spread out, gathering up more and more and more until they got to Guyana City. They got to the one right next to it, and they were kind of just spreading out these things, taking over these cities. They also went to like Barquisimeto, I think, right here. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce it. Then they shot up to Maracaibo. I can't remember how to pronounce these names. I memorized them for like just the video, but then I didn't end up recording it. So Maracaibo is right about here. They gathered that one. Then they went to Coro. Coro is right there. And then they went to a few major other cities that weren't so major. They wrapped around the bay here. I don't remember the name of this bay, but they got to these mountains here, and that kind of deflected them for a little bit, but they broke through and made it to Barinas. And as you can see, there's a lot of stuff happening here. So they started linking up these attacks here, forming a few encirclements over these things, and they started moving in because, well, now they're at full-scale war with Venezuela after taking over the dictator, and they started taking all of this stuff over, and that is when the UN stepped in and told USA, hey, you gotta stop. All you were going to do was take over or get rid of the dictator, but obviously that was not what you were trying to do. You're trying to get land. You're being imperialist. So we're going to have to step in to stop you. And the USA says, okay, fine. So what happens in the end is the U.S. gets kicked out of Venezuela. And a new leader is put into place, and the old dictator is not given back to USA. Because, well, why would it be? Oh, wait, no, the old dictator is not given back to whatever it's called. Okay, but anyway, that was the first video idea that was scrapped. Next up was, what if India and China formed an empire? These were two separate video ideas, but basically, first one was, what if India formed an empire? Inside of this video, I'm going to show you what the final results would have been. So, for India, they would have taken over Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and the part over here in northern Pakistan. And that's all they would have been able to do. Don't forget they also took over Sri Lanka. But that's what I had them doing in this. And then for India, it's a little bit more complicated because I had them taking over Nepal. I might have just said India instead of China. I meant China. They also took over Bhutan. They also took over Taiwan, Vietnam, Kazakhstan, and Tajikistan, and Mongolia. So quick explanation I want to make here. Inside of these videos, I did not, I like specifically did not keep... Right, I ignored outside politics, so, sure, I bet, someone would have stepped in when they invaded, Vietnam, but since I was, staying outside of politics, and it was just one-on-one conflicts, saying, hey, if China were to go to war with Vietnam, and no one else in the world was allowed to get involved, would China win? And that's a yes, in my opinion, because, well, they would, if they oh my god. If they could get back number one, that would most likely get to go to war with other country. I'm not sure if the United States would still back them, but United States would definitely supply them with troops and stuff like that. So, that's kind of what I did. I made sure that like it was one-on-one conflicts specifically. So the next idea that I had was including the United States again. It was a United States civil war. I know that what's happening in the United States right now is not so good for our country, and there could be a civil war that leads to it. So I made a civil war, but I could not figure out how it would end up happening. So I scrapped the video idea because it was a bit too complicated. Then I had another video idea: territories ruling over their rulers. So, for example, that would be Puerto Rico would now have the territory of the United States, meaning the United States would be a territory of Puerto Rico. But I just didn't like that idea, so I scrapped it once again. Also, it would be a little bit impossible because the United States has multiple territories, so who would get to rule over United States, or would it be split, or like something like that? So that's why I ended up cutting it, and I also just didn't like the idea. And then the next idea was UN's collapsing like League of Nations, but there are just too many countries in the United Nations, so I decided to scrap it because I would have to cover way too much. And then the next one was a really complicated one. Every single country had their own superpower. It was kind of like ironic superpowers. That was what I was going for. So, for example, also that you either get a superpower that's ironic to you or a motive that is ironic to you. If you get a superpower, good for you. If you get a motive, you also get a buff in all of your stuff, like military and things like that. So that's kind of why it's fair. But let me give you some examples. First of all, Chile. They had a motive. Their motive was to take over all coastal areas in the world. So that's pretty cool. Croatia, they had the exact same motive. However, they would take over every single coastal area in the world. However, they would leave a small little portion of that to give back to the other country. A country like Lesotho, their goal was to take over all inland stuff. So they could have allied with Chile, and they would have worked together, taking over countries. And Lesotho would take over the central parts of that country, and like when they're done, Lesotho would annex the central parts of the country, and Chile would annex the coastal parts of that country. What other ones did I have? I think China could make any country fall apart. Just begin to fall apart if they needed to. However, it was like it was debuffed. It was like I nerfed it so that way they had like a time limit or whatever on it, so they couldn't use it all the time. That's ironic because they spent most of their history being divided. I can't remember what a lot of them were because it was a long time ago and there was just so many of them. Italy, they had a motive to reform the Roman Empire. Same with Greece, they had a motive to reform the Greek Empire. Israel and Palestine, they each had motives to just be the one to rule over all of this. That's what their motive was. Egypt Egypt had the motive to just take over all of the Nile regions, so they would go down I don't remember how Nile works. So there were just a bunch of different stuff. I'm pretty sure Ukraine and Russia. Ukraine took all of Russia's government, military power, economic power. They took over all of that stuff. Romania, I'm pretty sure they became they could just scare enemy front lines away because Transylvania. The Hotel Transylvania movie. Okay, Switzerland can make any country neutral. Just snap their fingers and boom. Poland, they can disappear into the water whenever they need to. So basically, what that would mean is, this would happen, forming a new bay just right in the middle of Europe, and that was basically their power. It's ironic because they've only been around for 80 years. But Norway, they had Viking navies. Germany, I think we can all imagine what theirs might be. This is a callback to the 1940s. They can basically they can replace any government with a fascist government, and then they can get like a coalition formed against them, or they'll make bad ideas, or that government will make bad ideas, and bad stuff will happen. So that was kind of their power. They also had a power to give the enemy front lines flashbacks of World War II. Yeah, it was. I didn't like Germany's powers. Iceland, I think they can make anything icy, and then Greenland can make anything green. And then they could swap powers if they were to form an alliance together. Portugal and Spain, they had the motive to, fulfill the Treaty of Tordesillas, the treaty from 500 years ago at this point, I think. That was basically they split the world or whatever. I think it was like down this line, I think. Hold on, that didn't even show up. I think this was the line that it was. That. And then maybe it was like this here. I don't know, but whatever it is, Spain got kind of left loose. You know, they got mostly water. And Portugal got it all good. They got all nice stuff, you know? I think that was their motive. There was a lot of good motives, I think. There was a bunch of bad ones. Kenya, I think it was like a play on words, like Kenya. Same thing with Estonia, like they're like I stoned ya. They stone the opposing people. They're really bad ones. So that's why I scrapped it. It was very complicated because there's a bunch of countries in the world. And then also it was kind of boring in my. It was just hard to record. And then number two, or number three, I guess. There was a bunch of sensitive stuff like Germany's powers, definitely. But moving on to the next thing, I think we're done actually. Oh, now I'm talking about the favorite parts of Wixo. So back to this map. My favorite parts of Wixo are definitely reading your guys' comments. I love seeing you guys like react to stuff and give me ideas. A lot of ideas that you give me I've already implemented into the main storyline. Like for example, Red. So I saw someone saying that Red was gonna do something. Yeah, they just caused World War I to begin. So the linear I have a linear scale for time. Like for example, the Ancient Era was around 9 episodes long. They covered about 3,000 years. The medieval era was about 4 episodes long. They covered about 1,600 years. So 1,500 years was the medieval era. And then the colonial era, that was about 300 years. So as you can see, the first 2 episodes lasted a very long time. And now we're in the First World War, which, you know, that's going to slow down a lot at this point because I want to get in on the front lines, get in on the details, all the stuff like that. So we're definitely slowing down, meaning each episode will take up more years than the last. Or wait, no, each episode will take up less years than the last. My bad. But that's all I want to say. Thank you guys so much for 100 subscribers. Make sure to keep subscribing. Like the video. Make sure to let me know if you guys want to see any of these scrapped things be implemented. It might be hard to implement some of the Wixo ideas because, you know, that was mainly stuff from the past, but I could see if I end up implementing it in the future. But make sure to comment down any ideas for other stuff as well. So if you just have an idea in general, let me know. But thank you guys so much for watching this episode. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, like I said. And until next time, see ya.